Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's council meeting. I'm Deputy Mayor Trent Sullivan, and I'm chairing tonight in the absence of our Mayor, Stephanie Asher, who is away on family leave. Council would like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung, traditional owners of this land, and I pay my respects to the elders past and present, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Greater Geelong community today. This meeting is being broadcast on the internet, and a recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. We're meeting tonight via Zoom, so good evening to all councillors who are with us online, and thank you to everybody tuning in via our live stream. Before we move into the agenda, I need to advise that unfortunately our October meeting will no longer be held at a community-based location as was originally intended. I'm sure that you can understand this is due to the ongoing COVID-19 restrictions. As I'm sure you understand that we are trying to get our vaccination rates up high enough. So once we're at larger numbers are indoors and we're above 80%, the vaccination threshold, this may be improving our chances to have community-based meetings in the future. We hope it won't be too long, and we're looking forward to seeing our community members again during our meetings. Now let's begin tonight's meeting. Councillors, I'm asking for strict adherence to speaking time limits tonight. I know there's many items on here that we're all very excited about. I'll move on now to apologies and leaves of absence. I ask that Councillor Asher be noted as an apology this evening, and that she's requested a leave of absence from the 28th of September to the 15th of October 2021 inclusive. Councillors, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved Councillor Aiken, seconded Councillor Mansfield. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. I also have a request from Councillor Mason for a leave of absence from the 15th of October to the 14th of November 2021 inclusive. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved Councillor Murray, seconded Councillor Contell. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Are there any further apologies or leaves of absence to note in this evening? With that, I'll move on to declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest in relation to tonight's agenda? Councillor Contell?
Yes, thanks, Acting Mayor. I have a conflict with 2.4, which is the draft procurement policy, as a result of the business of which I'm a director, participating in business and responding to council tenders.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Noted. Are there any other conflicts to be noted this evening? If any do arise during the meeting, please make them known. Confirmation of the minutes. Can I please have a mover and seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 24th of August 2021? Moved Councillor Mansfield, seconded Councillor Crisbeck. Thank you. I also have another meeting times that need to be approved. Could I also have a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 14th of September 2021? Moved Councillor Mason, seconded Councillor Harwood. Thank you. Okay, now we have public. Next on our agenda we have is public question and submission time. Unfortunately, we're not able to take questions directly from the public as we conduct this meeting virtually. However, we continue to accept our questions and submissions from the community whilst the gallery is closed to the public. We have received questions from 17 community members for tonight's meetings, which will be read out and answered shortly. Each person will receive a written response via email, as well as have the question and response published by the city's website. It's also important to note that each councillor has read the questions that have been sent in. I now just take a moment to bring them up on my screen. Right. Do all councillors have the questions before them? Excellent. First question we have is from Maureen Peck in regards to the Packington Street UDF. Councillor Contell, do you wish to read out this question?
I apologise. Yes, of course I can. Sorry, I'm just getting it up on the screen properly. So yes, just give me a moment and I certainly will read that out. So Maureen Peck, the question is, with reference to the Packington Street and Gordon Avenue Urban Design Framework final UDF, August 2021, is the council aware that the population density of the Geelong West is already 32 per hectare, significantly higher than other inner suburbs? And why is council attempting to further increase population density such that the suburb will become unlivable? The response to that question at this point in time is that population density across the municipality were taken into account when preparing the Greater Geelong Settlement Strategy adopted in August 2020. And the population densities of around 30 people per hectare for an inner city suburb are considered to be moderate. The Packington Street North Precinct and Gordon Avenue precincts were identified as increased housing diversity areas to support the goal of accommodating 50% of population growth through the urban infill. I must add that the responses that we're reading out here have been drafted by the officers, and we're reading these as they've been presented to us.
Councillor Contell, we might just go through the questions and read the questions from our submitters out loud. Their answers will then be given directly to them, as mentioned, by the department heads. Would you like to just zip through and read out Maureen's questions 2 and 3, and then
Sure.
we'll have responses sent directly to her?
Apologise that I went through all that. Anyway, question 2 is, why is the framework flexible on heights and there is no mandated maximum, so that Packington Street North will become a high-rise wasteland with no limits on heights, when it is likely developers will seek to make maximum profit from as many apartments as they can, as is admitted in the framework document? That was question 2. Question 3, is the council aware of what heat island effects are and why are 4, 6, 8 and 10-storey buildings being proposed to be built that will have effect on creating a significant increase in temperatures in Packington Street North, because heat will be absorbed by the building fabric, and the proposal recommends an 80% coverage along the street, which any amount of tree planting won't counteract?
Julian.
All the questions from Maureen.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. We have questions from Shane Pearce to be read out by Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. This is from Shane Pearce. With the proposed UDF, there will be significant increase in traffic in very narrow local streets. Hope Street is in effect a one car at a time street and was never designed to take high level traffic flows. The proposed UDF will make current lack of parking much worse. Residents and visitors will have no parking. There will also be a significant increase in noise due to increase in traffic and activity, resulting in a reduction of our lifestyle quality and enjoyment. With this high density proposal, I have concerns also for potential reduction in property values due to the change of character and aesthetics of our traditionally heritage community. This proposed high-rise development will directly abut my property, with 10 and 6-level buildings towering all over Hope and Weller Street. Question 1, how can this scale of development even be considered remotely appropriate for a low-rise heritage area? Question 2, how will the amenity, livability, sole access and privacy, on-street parking and increased traffic flow be maintained and managed for existing residents in abutting and nearby houses and streets? And question 3, How have the direct impacts on abutting properties of the UDF been factored into the building height proposals? The UDF public consultation period should be extended and reopened until such time as all these issues are publicly disclosed and a traffic and parking plan completed so those directly impacted have the opportunity to provide feedback on the complete plan rather than the current one, which is missing key pieces of critical information.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. I actually will call upon officers to answer these meetings now on the live stream. So I'll head to our Acting Director of City Planning and Economy to answer Shane Pearce's questions before referring back to question 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So thank you, Shane, for your questions and interest in the UDF. I note you've also made a formal submission to the process, which I appreciate. In determining the proposed heights for all areas adjacent to residential areas, including those with a heritage overlay, a number of considerations are made with regard to the transition in height between existing properties, as well as minimising overshadowing and overlooking. To this end, a range of controls have been proposed, including setbacks to ensure that new development does not directly abut existing lower buildings, separation between new development, landscape interfaces, density controls to limit how much of the site that can be developed. The areas with proposed 6 and 10-storey height limits adjacent to your property will be separated by a laneway and landscaping in addition to the proposed setbacks. Question 2. The interim final UDF includes proposals for streetscape and public realm upgrades, including the creation of new open spaces and enhanced street tree canopy. The interim final UDF also includes the requirement for an infrastructure capacity assessment to be undertaken immediately after endorsement, which will identify what infrastructure will be needed to support the proposed development and the contributions required from future development to fund this infrastructure. All proposed developments are subject to the scrutiny of the planning process and therefore must demonstrate how they will contribute to improved amenity, including mitigating impact on overshadowing, and how they will meet requirements for the provision of car parking, as well as mitigation of traffic impacts on the local road network. Question 3, in determining the proposed heights, a number of considerations have been made with regard to the transition in height between existing properties, as well as minimising overshadowing and overlooking. To this end, a range of controls have been proposed, including setbacks to ensure that new development does not directly abut existing lower buildings, separation between new developments, landscape interfaces, density controls that limit how much of a site that can be developed, and to encourage the mass and bulk of a development to be broken up as much as possible.
Thank you very much, Durant Slagman. Much appreciated. We'll now refer back to the answers for question 1 from Maureen Peck. If you'd be so kind.
Thank you. I think Councillor Contel read out question 1, so I'll go straight to question 2. The interim final UDF proposes medium-rise height limits across all 3 precincts, including introducing limits where none currently exist. The discretionary aspect of the proposed height limits only apply where it can be proven that the additional height, which is capped at 1 to 2 storeys, will have no adverse impact on amenity, public and private, and heritage. And in addition, the development offers net community benefit above the minimum requirements. This approach does not guarantee additional height in every site. On the contrary, most sites will not be able to meet the aforementioned criteria because of other controls proposed in the interim UDF. Condition 3, the City has undertaken research with Deakin University on the very important issue, and the Urban Heat Island report is available to view on our website. The majority of sites within the Packington Street North Precinct directly abutting Packington Street have an existing 80% site coverage, whereas the interim final UDF proposes reduced site coverage for all major development sites. On top of this, density controls are also proposed in the form of floor area ratios to further reduce site coverage by breaking up the potential bulk and mass of future potential development. Controls are also in place to ensure that all new developments meet a minimum level of environmental performance in design to reduce energy use and the heat island effect. These controls, together with urban greening and water-sensitive urban design, are proven measures for mitigating the potential heat island effect. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, we'll then move on to our third submitter, Angela Mangan, I believe, to be read out by Councillor Murray. Councillor Murray, if you could read the script And the question involved with that was all been submitted by Angela, and then we'll throw to Joanne for response to question 1 and then 2 to 3.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. From Angela, my questions relate to the Paco Gordon Avenue UDF interim final draft in regard to the issues of disclosure of information and transparency, which has prevented proper public consultation. In terms of disclosure, Mr Gareth Smith stated in the Geelong Advertiser on the 13th of September that the city had commenced preparation of a parking plan, which is very different to having completed a parking plan. The public has therefore been asked to provide feedback on an incomplete UDF development proposal with no parking plan, which is a crucial piece of information to be missing and therefore not disclosed. Additionally, the Strand Woolworths site has only been disclosed since the 6th of August, when the interim final draft of the UDF was released. It was never included in previous drafts. This is not allowed for the requirement outlined and detailed in the Council's own community engagement policy, and I quote, participants to have access to appropriate information and time and space to deliberate. It is inaccurate that Council is claiming that the UDF details have been out in the public domain for the last 18 months. The Woolworths site was publicly disclosed for the first time as a key development site on the 6th of August. Council also only just released the Traffic Impact Assessment Report after the close of business on the 23rd of September, less than 24 hours before the UDF public feedback deadline, and on the eve of a public holiday long weekend. Most people would not even have been aware this had been released, let alone have had time to assess and provide feedback with less than a day to comment to meet the public comment deadline. There are also questions about the public having to access appropriate information given the Traffic Impact Assessment Report utilised 2009 Council provided data as the base for modelling for traffic impact purposes, rendering the assessment worthless as it bears no relationship to actual traffic volume conditions. Council therefore has not provided access to either appropriate information or time and space to deliberate. Under Council's own community engagement policy, re the form of engagement, there is the requirement to use, and I quote, methods to produce the most meaningful feedback. Deciding to release the interim final draft of the UDF on the 6th of August, the first day Geelong went into the previous lockdown, meant people were focused on other issues, have been unable to gather, hold public or street meetings or interact in the normal way due to COVID restrictions, which is not conducive to providing meaningful feedback. Council did not include information about the UDF on its own Facebook page or put up bench seat posters in the Paco Heritage Core until the 5-week mark of the original 6-week public consultation period. Releasing the Traffic Impact Report with less than 24 hours before the public comment period closed also was not going to provide meaningful feedback, especially as many people would not have been aware the report had been released. So the questions are, will Council reopen and extend the public feedback period, and will Council delay voting on the UDF until such time as a traffic impact assessment is redone, utilising up-to-date data rather than 12-year-old data Council provided, so as to enable public feedback to be provided, and until the parking plan is completed and released to the public for feedback, and until the community is out of lockdown and public meetings can be held. Thanks, Angela.
Response for that question is, thank you for your questions, Angela, and for your continued interest and input to the UDF process, including meeting to discuss your views and answer questions with councillors and officers. The public consultation period was recently extended from the 17th of September to the 24th of September to accommodate additional feedback and help alleviate impacts of COVID-19 restrictions. No further extensions are currently proposed to the 30 weeks of formal consultation already undertaken for the draft and interim final UDFs.
Thanks. And question 2, Council said that it had commenced preparation of the parking plan. When will this be completed? And when will Council make this available to the public?
A draft of the parking plan is expected to be released for public feedback in January 2022. It's worth noting that the parking plan is an expedited action from the UDF, not part of the framework plan itself.
Question 3, given the Woolworths site only appeared for the first time on the 6th of August interim final UDF draft and was not mentioned in the previous drafts, what assurance can the public have that there will not be further never before seen additions included in the final draft of the UDF?
The final UDF will not include any additional proposals to those already presented in the interim final UDF. The emission of height limits in the planning scheme on the Woolworths Strand site was identified after the publication of the draft UDF. To rectify this issue, height limits were included in the interim final UDF.
And question 4, on what date will Council release the final draft of the UDF to the public for comment and feedback prior to the Council vote so the public knows the full contents of the final UDF that Council will be voting on? And what period of time would a further round of public feedback be open for?
City officers will evaluate feedback received through the current consultation process and prepare a final UDF for consideration by Council at its public meeting in November 2021. As part of the standard Council meeting processes, the final UDF and officer report will be released to the public in the week prior to the meeting. There is no formal consultation during this period. As mentioned above, no further extensions are currently proposed to the 30 weeks of formal consultation already undertaken for the draft and interim final UDFs.
Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you to Angela for her questions to Council. Submitted number 4 is Sharon Jones, along the same lines with the Packington UDF. Councillor Contell, would you do the honours?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Question from Sharon Jones. In relation to the UDF, will the council-owned car park in Autumn Street become open space or will it be high-rise dwellings?
Thank you, Sharon, for your interest in the Packington Street and Gordon Avenue interim final UDF. In answer to your question, the council-owned public car park on Autumn Street has been identified as a potential future open space in the interim final UDF.
I want to submit a 5 from Robin McDonald on the same topic to be read out by Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you. So from Robin McDonald, most residents have at least 2 vehicles per household, if not more. Parking is already at a premium in Geelong West. The streets, with few exceptions, are very narrow and won't cope with a large volume of traffic along with more parked vehicles. What is the proposal to alleviate this concern, as more often than not, parking associated with this sort of accommodation is inadequate, i.e. 1 parking space or garage?
Thanks for your question, Robin, which I understand is in relation to the Packington Street and Gordon Avenue interim final UDF. Each proposed development will be assessed through the planning process and is required to demonstrate how it meets the requirements set out in the planning scheme for parking. These requirements include meeting minimum car park provisions, as well as ensuring that the design and location of car parking is of a high standard and contributes to a safe environment.
Fantastic. Thank you to Robin McDonald for that question. I now have a question from submitter 6, Andrew Ball, which I will read out. Who is responsible for public safety in new estates that are open to the public and having new houses constructed in them? The query is in relation to building compliance, particularly relating to temporary fencing being left open across footpaths and when trades leave the site and there are being lots of general buildings and materials scattered across the footpath and roads, creating a risk to life and the public. I'll refer this one to, naturally, the Director of City Services, Mr. Guy Wilson-Brown.
Thank you, and thank you, Andrew, for your question. The civil construction, building and demolition industries have responsibilities under the Environmental Protection Act to ensure the safety of their sites and reduce risk for the public, which includes fencing, litter and waste control. These requirements are documented in environmental management plans, which are approved by the city. Any concerns with compliance can be reported to the city for investigation on the general number 5272 5272 or via Council's website. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Guy. Submitter 7 is Eve Armitage. I'll throw that to Councillor Murray.
Thank you. Eve, the UDF Geelong West. I refer to application 39 to 45 Gordon Avenue, Geelong West, to amend their application to build 8 and 9-storey buildings within 50 metres of Packington Street, despite the outlined Gordon Street precinct plans for staggered building height starting at 1 to 2 storeys, rising to 10 storeys at Latrobe Terrace. I've objected to the original proposal of 10 storeys, objected again to this amendment, applied to VCAT and advised the City of Greater Geelong. Please confirm that this development is not to be permitted.
Thank you for your question, Eve. The original application for a 12-plus storey development at 39 to 45 Gordon Avenue, Geelong West, was refused by Council in February 2021. The proponent appealed the decision to VCAT and a hearing has been scheduled for the 25th to the 29th of October 2021. The proponent recently lodged amended plans with VCAT showing a reduced building height of 8+ and 9+ storeys. City planning officers are now preparing for this hearing, factoring in principles from the Packington Street and Gordon Avenue interim final UDF. The final outcome for this planning matter will be decided by VCAT, not the City or the Council. The UDF consultation and preparation continues as a separate process to this planning application and VCAT proceeding.
Thank you, Eve, for your submission. Move on to submitter 8, Ashley Lawler. I'll urge Councillor Patel to read out.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Certainly this demonstrates tonight how much interest there is in this matter from the community, which is encouraging. So the question reads, hello, my name is Ashley and my home is on Wellington Street, about 50 metres from Packington Street, where there are proposed 4-storey apartments to be built. As soon as the afternoon comes, I believe those structures will completely block the afternoon sun to my entire backyard. I bought my home before these proposals were prepared with the expectation a multi-level apartment building wouldn't be overlooking my backyard. The question is, have you prepared a day-by-day impact throughout each season of those buildings on existing homes between Wellington and Anglesea Streets to ensure no blocking of sun on gardens and solar panels?
Thank you for your questions, Ashley. Solar testing and shadow analysis have been undertaken to inform the urban design framework. Any new development will need to submit a planning application, which will be assessed against the planning scheme and will involve further scrutiny of overlooking and solar access considerations.
Thank you. Question 2. The UDF shows 2 very small areas of parks proposed for the Packington North Precinct. Why only 2 and why not larger or made into community gardens for apartment residents to utilise as a community garden?
The implementation section of the UDF includes actions to investigate infrastructure and open space provisions, including upgrade opportunities for West Park. This will trigger further work to consider additional greening opportunities in the area.
Thank you. And question 3, if apartment residents exceed your expected vehicle ownership proposal, will you restrict parking permits along local streets to ensure current residents have enough on-street parking?
Private car parking provision for new developments is a requirement that is managed through the planning scheme. A parking plan is under development to manage public parking provisions in the area over time.
We thank Ashley for her questions. Now moving on to submitter number 9, Hannah, which I'll throw to Councillor Mansfield to read out.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. So thank you, Hannah. The question again is in relation to the Paco UDF. So question 1, why change the vibe of Paco? Packington Street has become the heart of Geelong and is already a unique and fun place to go. And I might go straight to question 2. What will happen about parking? I work along Paco and already sometimes struggle to get a park. What will happen to us workers when you take away on-street parking?
Thank you for your questions, Hannah. Urban design frameworks provide a mechanism to direct investment and renewal in an area while guiding future development outcomes. The UDF does not propose major changes to the main retail part of Packington Street other than upgrades to footpaths and opportunities to introduce more greening and street trees. The adopted Greater Geelong settlement strategy makes a commitment to direct 50% of future growth in Greater Geelong to existing urban areas that have good access to services and public transport, including Packington Street. Question 2. The UDF also does not propose making major changes to on-street parking on Packington Street. A parking plan was included as an action in the draft UDF, and this is currently underway.
Excellent. We thank Hannah for her questions. Submitted number 10 is Lisa Marnell, which is also on the Packington Street UDF. I'll throw to Councillor Murray for this one.
From Lisa, regarding a traffic impact report released by Council on the 23rd of September relative to the Packington Street UDF, what consideration was given in the traffic assessment report to the sale yard site with 1,300 residents, which will cause increased traffic flow entering the northern part of Packington Street and surrounding areas, including Shannon Avenue?
Thank you for your questions, Lisa. The modelling in the transport assessment has used growth factors for all existing traffic entering and exiting the study area, in addition to the potential traffic generation from future developments within the study area.
And question 2, as a resident living on Shannon Avenue, where traffic is already continuous during the day and gridlocked in peak periods, we don't want to see the road reverted back to 2 lanes in both directions. Has this been considered, and can Council confirm that this is not part of any future traffic management plan? Has a current traffic impact assessment been undertaken on these major surrounding roads?
Shannon Avenue does not form part of the study area for the UDF, and therefore no consideration has been given to any changes to the street layout.
And question 3, we chose to live in Manifold Heights 20 years ago, simply loving this heritage area, incorporating Geelong West, Manifold Heights and Newtown with beautiful heritage homes and buildings, the proximity to fabulous schools, fantastic specialised shopping, cafes and restaurants in a village environment and central location. We are bound by heritage overlays across this neighbourhood. How is it feasible for Council to consider and approve high-rise developments to this magnitude in this precinct? I agree that the rail site is an eyesore and needs redevelopment. Will Council consider low-rise residential at this site, no more than 3 levels, in keeping with the neighbourhood and with specific heritage architecture elements and adequate green space surrounds? All other high-rise developments proposed in the Geelong West UDF should be moved to perhaps Mercer Street or the city centre where this can be accommodated. The beauty and unique vibe of Paco must be preserved. Will Council give this their consideration?
As previously mentioned, the adopted Greater Geelong settlement strategy makes a commitment to direct 50% of future growth in Greater Geelong to existing urban areas that have good access to service and public transport, including Packington Street. This will provide new lifestyle and business opportunities for our growing population and contribute to more sustainable development. A low-rise residential development on the railway siding area would not support population growth, housing diversity and affordability. A new public open space is proposed for the site.
Question 4. I note the traffic impact report was only released on the 23rd of September, 24 hours before the community engagement deadline. This is completely inadequate and doesn't allow for public review or feedback. Why is the modelling presented in this report inclusive of a 12-year-old traffic data for key intersections and side streets off Packington Street? Why hasn't a current full traffic assessment been undertaken with at least early 2020 data pre-pandemic? Where is Council's due diligence?
The modelling in the transport assessment uses the latest available turning movement counts. A growth factor of 1% per year over 10 years was added to the older data to establish a base pre-COVID 2019 year. The 1% growth factor was determined by reviewing historical data collected by the Department of Transport at signalised intersections in the area. This is an industry standard approach when more recent data is not available.
We thank Lisa for her questions. Submitted number 11 this evening is Mitchell Miller, who will throw to Councillor Contel to read out.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I thank Mitchell Miller for the question. It's a very relevant one. The question is, having analysed the UDF for the Packington Street Geelong West area and poorly constructed traffic impact, how are you going to avoid another City Council embarrassment like the Mallock Street green spine, I think he's referring to. It says strip, but spine. That's the question.
Thank you for your question, Mitchell. The outcomes of the Packington Street and Gordon Avenue interim final UDF have been developed in collaboration with the Geelong West community, with formal consultation undertaken over a total period of 30 weeks. Independent traffic engineers have provided recommendations for the management of future traffic growth generated by the proposed development in the UDF, utilising the city's most up-to-date traffic and parking data. We will continue to monitor and investigate the impacts of different stages of future development and ensure road network and sustainable transport upgrades are prioritised accordingly.
We thank Mitchell for their questions. Submitter number 12 this evening is Ross McElvany, and I'll first to Councillor Mansfield to read out.
Thank you. And thank you to Ross. His questions are, Paco upgrade. What's the possibility of residential property owners having the zoning changed to multi-storey free of charge when they are next to commercial properties when they're getting a free height change or have been allowed to develop multi-storey buildings?
Ross, thank you for your question. Any new development is dependent on current or future landowners lodging a planning application, which will then be subject to more detailed scrutiny and review, which includes needing to demonstrate potential impacts on nearby properties.
Okay. And question 2 is, will the urban planners come to see the properties personally to see the impact the height of buildings will have on their property? Have any developers actually applied for zoning changes pending this development?
The proposed heights in the UDF are predominantly mid-scale and are being proposed in a way that is responsive to the context and sensitive to the adjacent low-scale residential areas while increasing development potential. Sites for multi-storey developments have been strategically identified due to their locations, having minimal impacts on neighbouring properties. Permitted building heights transition in order to be responsive to surrounding residential areas.
Thank you, Ross, for your questions. Submitter number 13 this evening is Lewis De Cocker. I'll throw to Councillor Aiken to answer these questions or ask these questions.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. So just to give some background information to Lewis's question, he said that in 2015, COG Urban Forest Strategy delivered by the city's Parks and Gardens Department through the tree management team indicates that it expand on the concept of a city in a park, which focused on Geelong CBD to enhance the public and private tree population in all of the suburbs and townships across Greater Geelong. The strategy also recognises the importance of the private realm and of all open space in Geelong in contributing to the urban forest. In addition, the COG tree management policy recognises that trees form an essential part of a healthy urban environment. It also states that urban ecology applies to the genes, species and communities of all species within the municipality, including trees and plants indigenous to the local area, Australian natives and introduced tree species. However, despite the reference to private tree populations, the tree management policy protects trees on private property only to the extent that they are subject to protection under the COG planning scheme. The COG planning scheme, in turn, only requires permits for the removal of native Victorian trees. Question 1. What steps have COG taken to ensure that, despite the limitations set out above, the management of all trees in the private realm is integrated into the city's Parks and Gardens Department and specifically the tree management team's remit?
We'll direct this one to our Director of City Services, Mr. Guy Wilson-Brown.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Lewis, for your question. The city's Parks and Gardens Department is only responsible for trees in the public realm, but not in the private realm. So back to Councillor Aitken for the second question.
And the second question is, the COG Urban Forest Strategy contains detailed maps of the trees in Hyden and Whittington with a low useful life expectancy and indicates them using red dots. How many of the trees associated with the red dots on the two maps were removed since 2015, Part A, and Part B is how many trees were planted in the same location to replace the trees removed? Guy?
Thank you, Lewis, again for your second question. The city doesn't actually maintain records with respect to tree removals in any specific planning zones. With respect to the planting of trees, I can advise that since 2015, the city has planted a total of 35,690 trees throughout the city, and of these, 1,566 were planted in Pigton and 782 trees were planted in Whittington. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Lewis, for their questions. Submitted number 14 this evening is Louisa Gugorashuk, and who I'll direct to Councillor Murray to ask. Councillor Murray, you're on mute.
I am not. In relation to the Packington Street UDF, will you be counting any rooftop terraces and cooling towers on top of the new buildings as an actual story? Will you be building underground car parking for residents in these new high-rise buildings?
Which I'll direct back to Joanne Van Slagman, Acting Director, Busy Department.
Thank you. Louisa, thank you for your question. Rooftop terraces and cooling towers on top of the new buildings are not considered as additional stories. According to the Victorian planning provisions, a story is that part of the building between floor levels or a floor level and ceiling. This can include an attic, basement, built over car parking area and mezzanine. Each new development must meet certain requirements for the provision of car parking, which is the responsibility of the developer in question. Underground parking is strongly encouraged for such residential developments.
Thank you, Joanne, and we thank Louisa for her question. Submitted number 15 this evening is Suzanne Wong. I'll direct Councillor Contell to read out.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, and thank you to everyone that's submitted questions on this item. It certainly hasn't gone unnoticed. Suzanne's question is, help save Paco Geelong West from high-rise development. In just over 3 weeks, the petition Help Save Paco Geelong West from high-rise development received over 850 signatures and over 80 people registered comments. These comments, as you will see when you look at the petition, which I believe is being tabled at tonight's meeting, it is, overwhelmingly objected to the village character of Packington Street, Geelong West, being destroyed by such inappropriate high-rise development as proposed in the interim final UDF. The question is, my question to Council is, will Council respect the wishes of petitioners and vote to reduce the heights of buildings in the proposed UDF to ensure that the vibrant character of Paco is protected?
Suzanne, thank you for your question. The final UDF will take into account the feedback from all stakeholders and has been developed with the intention of maintaining the character and appeal of the Packington Street precinct. The scale of development proposed in the interim final UDF was based on changing economic conditions, the infill requirements of the adopted Greater Geelong settlement strategy to meet population growth, housing diversity and housing affordability, as well as Council's retail strategy.
Excellent. Thank you, Suzanne, for your questions. Submitted number 15 is Jane Mooney this evening, who I will have read out by Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. Jane's question is as follows. COG Council meeting Tuesday, the 28th of the 9th, 21. I'm supportive of development that is sensitive and appropriate. I would like to see development that rejuvenates the northern end of Paco and Gordon Avenue. However, the proposal outlines wall-to-wall 4, 6, 8 and 10-storey high-rise buildings that are concentrated at the northern end of Packington Street, Wellington Street to Church Street and along Gordon Avenue. The proposed UDF is not aimed at rejuvenation, but at maximising the amount of new residents that can be squeezed into Geelong West in order to limit government expenditure on providing new infrastructure assets. If realised, it will increase the population of Geelong West by 50% and make Packington Street one of the most densely populated parts of, it says Melbourne, but I'll read that as Geelong. The scale of high-rise buildings and number of new residents will overwhelm an area that is already suffering significant traffic problems and population density. Geelong West already has a much higher population density than other suburbs of Geelong. The traffic network impact assessment document that was released less than 24 hours before the end of the public consultation period, 23rd of the 9th, 21, and commissioned by COG, shows that the population of Geelong West will increase by 51% with the addition of 5,400 new residents concentrated in North Paco and Gordon Avenue. This huge increase in the density of the population will disproportionately affect Packington Street, particularly at its northern end and along Gordon Avenue. This huge increase in density, this will significantly impact the amenity of existing residents. It also has major implications for local infrastructure. Unfortunately, there are numerous examples of this type of failed approach in many Melbourne suburbs. It would be a dreadful shame for the same fate to befall Packington Street. Melbourne's failed policy should not be replicated in Geelong West. Question 1. The UDF currently allows for high-rise buildings ranging in height from 4 to 10 stories. Within the UDF, there is also the possibility of heights being increased by a further 1 to 2 stories. These building heights are way too high and out of proportion with the surrounding low-rise businesses and residences. Will Council reduce the building heights contained within the UDF by more than 50% so they fit within the existing character of the Paco surrounds?
Jane, thank you for your question. The final UDF, including proposed height limits, will be informed by the feedback from all stakeholders.
And question 2, please explain what the process and timeline will be to allow proper public feedback and consultation in response to the final UDF.
As previously stated, the public consultation period was recently extended from the 17th of September to the 24th of September to accommodate additional feedback and help alleviate impacts of the COVID-19 restrictions. No further extensions are currently proposed to the 30 weeks of formal consultation already undertaken for the draft and interim final UDFs. The final UDF will be made available to the public the week prior to the council meeting in November.
Thank you. And question 3, how will existing landlocked schools in the Packington North area cope with increased enrolment demand due to the increased population density in Geelong West?
The need for additional schools based on current population and future projections will be considered by the Community Infrastructure Planning Unit in collaboration with the Department of Education.
Excellent. We thank you, Jane, for your questions. Much appreciated. Submitted 17 this evening will be Jean Nell, presented by Councillor Maloney.
Deputy Mayor, thanks, Jean, for your question. It's in relation to the urban forest strategy, which is delivered by City Parks and Gardens Department and also through the tree management team. There's 3 questions. The first one is the City Parks and Gardens Department specified as the referral authority in the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme? I'll refer that to our Director, Guy.
And that's yes, the Director, Guy Wilson-Brown, City Services. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Jean, for your question. Council internal departments are not considered as referral authorities under the planning scheme. Only various specified external authorities are specified as referral authorities under the planning scheme. Thank you.
Thanks, Guy. Thanks, Guy. The second question is, since January 2019, how many applications related to heighten under the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme were referred to the City Parks and Gardens Department?
Thank you, Councillor Maloney, and thank you, Jean, again for your question. There's a second part to this question which I might deal with because it sort of follows on. So the second part of the question is of the referrals that have been referred to the Parks and Gardens City, how many were supported? So I can advise that there have been 20 referrals to our internal Parks and Gardens team since 2019, and of those 20 referrals, 12 were supported. The remaining 8 were partially supported or not supported at all. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Was that all the questions from Jean? All sorted. Excellent. Well, with that, that's all of our submissions from the public this evening. We thank everybody for putting in their questions to be answered at Council. We do appreciate your understanding this difficult time of doing this online. We can't wait to have you in the chamber doing this face-to-face again. I'll move now into petitions. And councillors, I'm aware that there are petitions to be tabled this evening. Any councillors have a petition? Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Sullivan. As was alluded to during the question time, there is a petition regarding the Packington Street UDF. This was submitted by Suzanne Wong as well as Angela Mangan. Again, as was mentioned in the question time, there are 850 signatures. It was an online petition via change.org and comments were made from 80 people. Specific requests in the petition are for COG to, one, reduce the building heights by more than 50% in the UDF, two, undertake a traffic management and parking plan and make it public, three, publicise and consult more widely with residents, follow council's own policy guidelines, four, extend the consultation period beyond the 19th to the 7th, 21, and update the plans to take into account the actual views of residents, and five, release the final UDF to the public prior to council voting.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
I understand that petition has been uploaded, given we're doing this meeting virtually, and I'm also aware that all councillors have received a copy of the petition and accompanying background letter, which provides some context to this.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. It's a bit odd to be tabling something virtually, but we're making do in this COVID world. I also have one, which I'll be tabling on behalf of Councillor Asher. This is a petition requesting the sealing of Asbury Road West, or Street West, Ocean Grove, which has again been uploaded and circulated. Are there any other further petitions to be tabled? With that, we'll move into section B of this evening, which is the reports. Now, the first item on our agenda is an item that's close to all the hearts of councillors here. That is the Youth Council third report of 2021. We have a bit of a treat here this evening where we have Deputy Junior Mayor Mackenzie Sinclair to present the 2021 Youth Council's third report. Junior Deputy Mayor, the floor is yours.
Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung people, the traditional owners of this land, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, as well as acknowledging all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people present and watching this evening. Good evening, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, Greater Geelong councillors and directors, as well as the Youth Council and community members watching tonight. Youth Council would like to first acknowledge and thank Council for their support and mentoring over the last 9 months that has helped to inform the advice presented this evening. This evening, I would like to focus on the advice we as Youth Council have provided in this, our third report. Before proceeding, I'd like to encourage all members of our community to read our full report that celebrates and details the progress and achievements of Youth Council since the previous report presented to Council on June 22. In our third report, we have provided 3 pieces of advice to Council for consideration, which has been shaped through the coaching and mentoring received from councillors in our Councillor Connect mentoring program sessions from the feedback we have received from young people across the municipality. Our first piece of advice relates to COVID-19 and young people and is directly connected to the Youth Council priority areas of health and wellbeing and diversity and inclusion. Our first piece of advice is, in the event of another significant COVID lockdown, Youth Council would like Council to consider the feasibility of expanding the education support program that the City offered to its employees during the last significant lockdown to provide support to identified vulnerable populations to decrease the risk of disengagement from school and decrease the risk of social isolation. Our second piece of advice relates to public safety and relates to our safe and healthy places and health and wellbeing priority areas. Our second pieces of advice and input are, Youth Council would like to express support for the planned upgrades to Tim Hill Reserve included in the 2021-2022 Council budget. Separately, Youth Council would like to advocate for Council to undertake a scoping study at Tim Hill Reserve to understand the costs to installing lights across walking tracks and open space to improve perceptions of safety for young people using and transiting through this reserve. Youth Council would like to identify an opportunity for Council to advocate to the Department of Transport to assess the suitability of a school crossing at 131 Geelong Road, Grovedale, connecting the existing bus stop to the alternative education setting that is located directly opposite. Youth Council would like to express its support for the inclusion of funding for the investigation and design work relating to traffic lights at the Thornhill-Roseland Road intersection in Pigton in the 2021-2022 budget, and notes this as a high priority for young people accessing this area. Our third and final piece of advice also relates to our safe and healthy places and health and wellbeing priority areas and relates to social infrastructure. Youth Council would like to provide the following input and advice. Youth Council would welcome the opportunity to participate in a co-design process with other young people, key stakeholders, services and partners to ensure the future youth designated spaces meet the needs of local young people. Youth Council would like to express its support for the development of a master plan for Churnside Park in Lara that focuses on upgrades on existing infrastructure, inclusion of fitness equipment and interactive nature play installations. Youth Council would like to advocate for additional fitness equipment in the parks, playgrounds and open green space across Greater Geelong to encourage physical activity among young people and the general community. Thank you for listening and good night.
Thank you very much, Deputy Junior Mayor Mackenzie Sinclair. Very relevant points being brought up by the Youth Council and presented in a very eloquent and well-spoken manner. The whole council thanks you for being here this evening. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll have the Youth Council third report. Ask for a mover. Councillor Mansfield, seconded. Councillor Mason, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan, and thank you to Mackenzie. That was a fantastic presentation. And look, has really covered a lot of the main points in that report. I think some of the standouts for me in this report were really around the work that they've been doing on how we can better engage young people in our municipality. Community engagement is something that we are still challenged by, I think, as a council on a whole range of issues. How can we reach more people? How can we get more meaningful community input on issues that affect them? And so it's fantastic that our youth council are turning their minds to how we can better engage with their demographic and their peer group about the issues that matter to them. I think, from what's outlined in the report, there've been some great suggestions around that already. I also think it's been fantastic to have their input on some of our really important strategic priorities. So our clever and creative vision, revitalising Central Geelong, and some of the other big really big projects that we're doing as a council. Again, casting that youth lens over those projects will ensure that they really meet the needs of young people going forward. And as Mackenzie outlined, there are a whole range of very specific requests about how we, in practical ways, that council can support young people. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how the City of Greater Geelong responds to those requests. I think it's really important that we listen to what they're asking us, because they are the group that have, in touch with what young people are needing in our municipality. So it's so valuable for us to have them and their insights, and it's incumbent upon us to follow up that interest, that passion, and that constructive feedback with action. So I really do look forward to seeing what comes of those suggestions. I'd also just like to mention that the officers who help to support the Youth Council, so Robin Stevens, Blake Edwards, and the whole team around them, I've just done an outstanding job with setting up and continuing with the Youth Council. Councillor Mason and myself were fortunate to be at a presentation recently that was being made to another council who are very keen to understand what we've done with Youth Council and perhaps replicate the model. And I think in seeing, it was an opportunity to reflect on the evolution of the program and also get a real insight into how much work has gone into getting it off the ground, but also really developing it as it's matured over time. And it was a very proud moment to see that see that presentation take place and really see other councils' interest in this. So I think it's a great initiative, something we should be very proud of, and something the officers who have led this should be very proud of.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and very well said, Councillor Mansfield. And I resonate many of the points that you've made. And what an excellent report Mackenzie made. And yes, I was recently very proud also to be advised of the interest of other municipalities, interest in our innovative COG Youth Council. And I've learned since that there's no other such youth council like it in Australia. Councillor Mansfield and I learned such things the other day, and I was also very chuffed to learn that we are leaders in the field, and to see the level of planning, high quality education and child welfare values that are being fostered and implemented by our staff, our progressive staff led by Robin and her community life team. And I'll mention some names as Councillor Mansfield, Ed Blake, Edward, Scarlett Gridland, Lee McCallum, who's recently left us, and Rhonda Pedretti. So look, we really have an exemplary design in our youth council, and it's we're really proud of it. And we're really proud of this high standard report and reporting. And the last 3 COVID-dominated months have certainly presented challenges for our youth council, and they've been up to the challenge. And they've demonstrated this by the excellent report tonight and all of their advice, which there's no need to repeat it all. But I did also note in the report that they've also given careful attention and interest to Ida Hobbit, LGBTQI plus issues, and the importance of finding people finding their community. And so their interest was wide ranging. It went to the fort, the multicultural community, and also to the mentoring program. And the mentoring program has also been going very nicely. Certainly I've enjoyed it with the Bellarine youth councillors and the rapport that they've developed with us. And so we're certainly going to take notice of their advice, the advice on the education support program, the youth health and wellbeing programs, and so on. I endorse the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason, right on the bell. Any other councillors who wish to make a comment on this topic? Councillor.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'd just like to say exactly the same words that Councillor Mansfield and Mason said, that it is a joy for us to engage with the youth councillors, and I'm pleased that they've put their report forward. I'd also, in a rare moment, like to congratulate my fellow councillor Anthony Aiken for bringing this to council in the very beginning of our first term. And this was an initiative that he championed. And so you can see now that this has been a great program, and it would be hopeful that we would continue this program well into the future. We've seen what a dedicated young group of people can do, and I'm pleased to receive their report again. Just wanted to call out that the councillors that Councillor Aiken and I, the youth councillors that we speak to and mentor, Ezra, Lily and Emily, some amazing discussions that happen at our mentoring sessions, some really adult conversations that you don't necessarily expect from a young person. They're really mature, they're well thought out. And even, in one of the items in their report tonight, they spoke about, if there was another significant COVID lockdown, that they would like us to consider, a feasibility of expanding education support programs. I think these are ideas that are amazing that come from young people, but it's really identified that they are thinking about these long-term things that COVID are doing to the youth. And we really appreciate their views. And also in terms of Chirnside Park, I totally agree with the youth councillors, and I know our youth councillors in the Windermere ward have definitely raised that with us, and it is something that we are already doing. So I look forward to them having further input onto what we might do at Chirnside Park going forward. So I really appreciate their dedication this year, given it's been difficult online. Would have loved to have done it in person, but they have been real super troopers. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grisbeck. Other councillors? Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I too like to endorse all the words from my fellow councillors that have spoken, and really congratulate Mackenzie on the way that she delivered that report tonight. Very impressive, and really is representative of all the youth councillors. I'm not sure if she's still with us, but congratulations to her. And as has been spoken, I think it's really important that we not only listen and read the report, but we actually act on the report. It's all very well to read it and say, yeah, then we'll get on with that. But I think it's really important that we act on their wishes. This Connect mentoring program continues to be a very enjoyable program to be part of, both for the youth councillors and for the councillors ourselves. It is really a tremendous experience, and to see that the youth of today and these that represent the youth, we're in very safe hands for the future. Thank you.
Excellent. Very well said. Any other councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I wasn't going to speak on this item, but I feel compelled to now, because I've sort of been thinking about some of the commentary throughout the report. And there's one that really resonates with me, because we've been talking about the development of a play space in Bell Park recently, and I received an email from a young person from that area. And it's interesting that the ideas that came from this young person in relation to the park that we're looking at developing is very much in line with that's been presented to us tonight in this report, where the Youth Council is advocating for additional fitness equipment in parks and open spaces. And I think what we should do is perhaps put some thought into how we might better utilise the Youth Council in the future. And whilst I may not be intimate with the way that we engage them in the review of policy and processes in council, but there's certainly areas where I think the Youth Council could add some real expertise and insight into our planning of different council business, and open parks and play spaces are an example of that. Because when we go out to community consultation and engagement in newspapers and things of that nature, we generally don't get a lot of engagement from the youth. So we probably should, in fact, use what's at our disposal, and for those types of projects, really get our youth council to cast a lens over those. I'll certainly be doing that as an individual councillor from this point forward, because it really actually has encouraged me to look at things a bit differently in terms of play space. But I'm sure there'd be a whole range of other policies and planning that our youth council could help us garner the voice of the youth, where we may not necessarily generally get that through the normal means of consultation that we use. So anyway, it's just a thought, but I thought it was a really good point, and I agree that the points that they've put forward to us in this report are really valuable. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Contell. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr. Acting Mayor Sullivan. Look, I just wish to add, what's great about having young people around you is their energy. We actually get quite tired and lethargic, and I actually love every time we get to engage with the youth councillors, because you bounce off their energy and it actually revitalises you as a councillor. So I'm really pleased about that personal interaction that we're getting and benefit from that. And my only other comments relate to two issues. One is I was actually shocked at my last engagement portfolio meeting when we got our summary of the most recent engagements that councils participated in. And it actually was fantastic to find out that the skate park at Warm Ponds was the number one issue in terms of engagement in the city of Greater Geelong in the last 8 weeks. And over 80% of the people that participated in that engagement were between the ages of 12 and 18, and actually had the highest level of engagement of any other issue. And the number 3 issue in terms of level of engagement in our community was actually the hill, which is the jumps in Newtown. It was actually number 3 out of all our have your says in engagement. So what it proves to me is that our young people do want to be involved in engagement, and they do want to participate in the discussions on issues. And the officers are actually really pleased as well too that young people have taken up that opportunity to participate in our engagement program. And the only other one I want to make a brief comment on to reflect on the report is the issue about direct service delivery. Kylie and I are extremely lucky to have the best model of direct service delivery and youth services in Geelong, which is called the Fort, based at Stead Park. And all of our youth council members who've had the opportunity to go to that actually understand and see why it is such fantastic service delivery in interaction with our local young people. We need to duplicate that model across the rest of Geelong, not just at the Fort. And it is going to mean that council is going to have to significantly increase the amount of funding that's available in our youth services area. We're also going to have to seek grants from both the state and federal government to be able to pay for those types of services. And in fact, those decentralised services should actually also complement the proposal to have a centralised youth hub in the CBD of Geelong. And if we can deliver both of those and find the budgets to be able to do them, we certainly are doing the right thing in responding to our youth council and providing the best service that we can to our young people.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. Any other councillors wish to make comment? No. Councillor Nelson.
I guess I better make a comment after Councillor Aitken there. Certainly, a great thanks to Mackenzie for this report. Those guys do a great job. Boys and girls do a great job. The 3 councillors in our area, Eva, Madeline and Neve, have certainly highlighted some issues with regard to public safety. And it really says that we're on the money, because Tinville Reserve is being upgraded. Thornhill Road has been upgraded. The only one that we're struggling on is, and I think it's a typo there from officers, I'll blame officers and not the junior councillors, is 131 Torquay Road, Grovedale. And that's a really dangerous intersection that we need some lights on. So I'd be really happy to advocate with the junior councillors, even from any ward, to participate in that, to get the Department of Transport and the local member to make that intersection safer, because it is a death trap, and the sooner we can get that fixed for everyone, the better. So well done, well done.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nelson. No other councillors wish to make comment? I'll throw to Councillor Mansfield to close.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan, and thank you to all my fellow councillors. I think the comments tonight highlight just how much support there is for the Youth Council, and how much as a council we get out of having having this Youth Council established, and how much we really value the contribution that you are making, and I think it's important that all the members of the Youth Council recognise that you are making a real difference through the contributions that you're making. That as has been pointed out, there's a whole lot of issues that resonate with councillors in different wards, and will lead to action. So I think you should be very proud of the work that you're doing. I know that it's been a challenging year once again. We were hoping that 20 would be there, was the tough year for youth council, and would be able to have a lot more face-to-face activities this year. It hasn't been the way, but you've pushed through and just done an incredible job and continued to, undertake some great advocacy for young people. I look forward to your next report, and also engaging with you again through the Councillor Connect mentoring program as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. With that, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 2 on our agenda is the Positive Ageing Strategy 2021 to 2047. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mansfield. A seconder? Councillor Mason. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. So the Positive Ageing Strategy really highlights, I think, just as what we've seen with the Youth Council, it's incredibly important to have the perspective of older residents in our municipality to ensure that we're meeting their needs as well. And one thing that I think has really been highlighted through the community engagement process we've undertaken around this strategy is that what ageing means and how it affects people is just as diverse as the population itself. And ageing, it's a universal process, happens to everyone, but it's not uniform in terms of how it's experienced by people or their families or communities. But I think, particularly in the past, a lot of services, facilities and policies have probably failed to fully recognise this diversity of needs within our older population or the broader needs of the people that they're serving. And I think this strategy really marks a shift in thinking around how we serve people as they age in our community. I'd really like to thank the Ageing Well Advisory Committee for their feedback and also for engaging with their networks and other community members who provided feedback and input to this strategy. Particularly given the challenges with COVID restrictions, community engagement has been harder, but we had 112 survey responses and as well as some written submissions, which were really excellent submissions and have helped to strengthen the original strategy that was developed. Some of the strong themes in the feedback included a desire to have a much stronger emphasis on the human rights of older people, as well as social equity. Safety has been further emphasised throughout the strategy, including physical safety, but also perceived safety, and that sense of being safe. And this includes things like social infrastructure and footpaths, lighting, access to transport, better valuing and recognising the contributions that people make to the community and the economy as they age, ensuring that older people have access to the services and supports that they need and that the barriers to these are addressed. And one of the things that I think it comes out in a lot of the community engagement we do, particularly around plans and strategies, is that, there's often a lot of support for the words that are in the document, but people want to see actions follow those. And so, that was a consistent a bit of feedback, is that people want meaningful actions to actually implement what's in this strategy. It's a great strategy, but it won't mean anything unless we do something with it. And I'm assured that an action plan is in development and that it will take a really, we'll be looking at unique ways to engage the community on developing that action plan as well. I think there'll be some exciting developments on that front over the coming months should this strategy be endorsed tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Through to Councillor Mason, second.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and thanks once again to Councillor Mansfield. Very well said. And yes, one of the first actions will be co-design, and I endorse this very well prepared strategy and its focused theme: respected, connected and thriving. And I'm sure that after further community co-design, it will be refined and it will age and mature gracefully for the next 25 years. In 2016, we joined 44 other Victorian councils by signing a statement of support and partner endorsement to the World Health Organisation's Age-Friendly Declaration. And so this is another example of the progressive and forward thinking showed by our officers who are keeping their fingers on the pulse of the social equity principles and the social science of understanding ageing. And this strategy represents the opportunity for innovation and extending our role beyond business as usual. It's an expression of our evolving relationship with local communities, other local organisations, and other levels of government. And so the next step is co-design this action plan with stakeholders and the community as outlined in our 21 to 22 action plan and our community plan. Acting Mayor, this strategy also acknowledges that people, as Councillor Mansfield just said, people aged 55 and over vary greatly depending on their functional capabilities, needs and preferences. It recognises also that people, as they age, will go through several major life transitions, such as retirement, often longer than in the past, loss of a driver's licence, loss of a spouse or a partner, caring for one loved, and indeed end-of-life planning. So I look forward to this action plan, which will be co-designed by the ageing stakeholders and grassroots inputs, which will surely reinforce this strategy. And by the way, I'm ramping up for the Seniors Week in October, and I hope to be on my best behaviour, taking Schoolies Week possibly as some sort of model. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. A very interesting comparison there. We'll all be on the lookout, I'm sure. Any other councillors wish to make a comment on this topic? Councillor Grisberg.
Thank you, and thank you for those words, Councillor Mansfield and Councillor Mason. Just quickly to add that I hope that this document will give other organisations around Geelong a real view about how this can be done properly. There are organisations, corporate organisations, that are struggling about how to engage the senior section of our community, and I'm hoping that this can give them some input and some advice, because our team have done a stellar job here in relation to the engagement. And I look at the high engagement of the community was, with 115 submissions. I think that was really well done, and the targeted engagement, particularly to groups such like senior citizens groups, was really well thought through. So I'd like to congratulate the team on this, and I'll be endorsing this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Now the councillors wish to comment. Councillor Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I don't see myself as an older person, but I believe I am now because it says 55 or over. And I'll be joining you, Councillor Mason, in the Senior Week, and look forward to it. But the strategy is about the city of Greater Geelong becoming a better place to live for people as they age. And I think the strategy involved here will do that. But there's an extract that really struck home to me, and I just want to read that out. Older people are an important and vital part of our community. Being older simply means one thing: having lived longer. It does not define who someone is, nor what they are capable of. We want to do more to respect and celebrate the diversity of older people who live, work in and visit Geelong, while respecting and supporting their individual experiences, preferences and backgrounds. So I think just that extract out of this strategy itself speaks volumes for what this is all about. And I look forward to the action plan. I hope I can be involved in that somehow. And I think there's some on this council who represent the older people well. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murray. Now the Councillor Aiken.
Look, I actually just wish to add that isn't it quite fascinating that our Indigenous population have always respected their elders and done it for 50 to 60,000 years, and we're actually now understanding the benefit of respect of our elders. And in fact, we're putting a policy position in place from a government perspective to actually say your elders are actually very important. They deserve the opportunity to age gracefully, and most importantly, they deserve your respect. And I'm really excited that we're actually following what the Indigenous population has done for 50 to 60,000 years. So, and I hope that this is a forerunner of many other policy positions that councils and governments accept and implement, which our First Nations people have been doing for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Any other councillors wish to comment? I'll throw back to Councillor Mansfield to close.
Thank you. And thank you once again to my fellow councillors for your contributions to that discussion. Thank you for highlighting the upcoming Seniors Week. It sounds like Geelong better watch out. Could get wild. But in all seriousness, the events for Seniors Week have been moved online due to the impact of COVID, but hopefully that means that, you know, that will open up access opportunities for some people who maybe wouldn't have participated. We know from the information based on last year's Seniors Week, there was actually really good engagement with a lot of those online events. So check out our website for more information on what's on and what you can participate in. I think there'll be some great programs. Yeah, once again, thank you to the officers who've put a lot of work into getting to this point. I think, as Councillor Grisbeck highlighted, you know, this is another great example that others could potentially follow. I think it shows the benefit of setting those foundations really well. So, you know, doing the work to establish an advisory committee, forming those connections and partnerships with different organisations and key community groups that are out there. All of that work is what, you know, you can write a great document, but without that great groundwork, it's, you know, it's hard to get something as meaningful as what we've produced here, and it'd be much harder to implement or have any meaningful actions come out of it. So it really goes into that prep work. So thank you to all of those who've contributed to it.
Excellent. And with that, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 3 this evening is tender T2100, that's it, 59, the Drysdale Library Project Construction. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mason. A seconder? Councillor Nelson. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. And yes, this is to award the contract for the construction of the Drysdale Library Project to A.W. Nicholson Proprietary Limited. The inspirational design was completed by Antarctica Group Proprietary Limited in April 2020 and is identified as a key developer contribution plan infrastructure item, which will service the Drysdale community with a regional library and community hub. This was planned to occur when the population became greater than 2,000 residents. The tendered sum of the price is of the order of 7.6 million, where the state has contributed 1 million and therefore the city has a 6.6 million balance. This will be very welcome addition to the Drysdale community and will be in pride of place adjacent to the town square. Community engagement was comprehensively undertaken with the Geelong Regional Library Corporation, the Wadawurrung traditional owners, Aboriginal Corporation, other stakeholders and the local community through the Community Reference Group. And the community vision and aspirations are fully manifested in the building design and its functionality. It'll uphold world standard library design and development. And it's something we'll all be proud of and the Drysdale community will be proud of. It'll help to create informed communities through providing access to local and global information processes. It'll provide free and universal access to uniform information technology infrastructure, computer literacy, and technology resources. It'll provide a welcoming and neutral community space that is open to all members of the community from all walks of life by connecting individuals, groups, and government. And it'll provide enhanced and social amenity for the whole local Bellarine community, encouraging informal recreation activity, even an adult changing places facility. So, Acting Mayor, the Procurement Services Unit administered an open tender process on behalf of the City Works Procurement and Contracts Manual. Based on the tenderer's project experience, expertise, value for money and project risks, the tender evaluation panel recommend that AW Nicholson Proprietary Limited be awarded the contract for the provision of these works. Subject to Council awarding the contract, the project will begin on the 11th of November this year, a notable day and date, Remembrance Day. So I support the recommendation and the contract be awarded and that the CEO should proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. Through to Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. Certainly, Councillor Mason has said everything with regard to the winning of the tender, so I won't talk too much about that other than to say congratulations to the winning tenderer. What I will say is that it really shows how much this council loves libraries. It was only around 4.5 years ago, as we all know, that state government appointed administrators tried to close libraries. They tried to close the Highton Library. They tried to close the Jewel Library, and they tried to close the Barlin Heads Library. And in 4.5 years, we've not only kept those libraries open, but we've spent money on the libraries, and we're spending another $7.5 million on this library because we know as a council how important these libraries are. And while that $1 million from the state government is welcomed through that fund, ongoing costs from state government for libraries are the lowest level since they have been in 1983. So I'm really concerned about that, the level of funding from our state government, but can't wait to see this project come out of the ground. So hope to be down there with Councillor Mason in November. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Any other councillors wish to make comment? I'll just wrap up by adding my voice of support to this project. This is a fantastic building. It's going to be a fantastic facility. Green, low carbon levels, even having carbon smart construction strategies put in place. This is going to be an iconic building of design for the North Bellarine, and what better than a community library to have that display. And if no other councillors to make comment, I'll throw to Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and also our Chair of the Councillor Ron of the Regional Library Corporation. Look, I think it's all been said. It will be a wonderful and iconic building. It's certainly got carbon care within the design, and this iconic building is going to keep serving our community. And as Councillor Ron mentioned, we really are seeing libraries going from strength to strength, and the community really appreciates these facilities. And it just goes by the statistics. We've got something like over 100,000 members in our library system just within the municipality of Geelong. So I endorse the recommendation, and thank you all for your inputs.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. With that, I'll put this to the vote. All in favour? All those against? The item's carried. Number 4 this evening we have is our draft procurement policy. Do I have a mover? Councillor Aiken, and I'll second this one myself. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Sullivan. Look, it's a long agenda tonight, but I actually think this is the most significant item that's actually on the agenda for the council. And why? Because this is actually a draft procurement policy about how council spends up to $250 million per annum in our community. And at the present time, the current focus is on value for money. And what this council group has done, we've challenged our officer group under this policy review to actually take a shift towards quality. We've also asked them to challenge them to actually look at social procurement as a major outcome for our expenditure that we're undertaking in our community. We are asking our community now to have a look at this particular document and policy position if it is adopted tonight. It'll be available for the whole month of October, from the 1st of October to the 29th of October. And what it does do is it actually puts out there that spending money isn't just about a ranking system based on the cheapest price. This council group actually wants to actually have a very significant strategic focus on how we do spend in our community. The social procurement framework will actually set some key targets and it will come out in early next year. However, what we have challenged our procurement team in the City of Greater Geelong to have a look at is, can we use our $250 million annual spend to help employment opportunities for residents in areas disadvantaged? Can we use our $250 million to support Indigenous businesses and individuals? Can we use our $250 million to actually try to create gender equity in delivery of our services and our procurement policy that we have in the City of Greater Geelong? And I think that's a really exciting challenge that this council group has put to our officers, and they've come back to us with this policy procedure. And I now look forward to the community giving us some advice and influence as well too. So please have a look at it. It also sets some processes in place about our quotations and our tendering and sets some new thresholds, like councillors actually saying now that contracts over $500,000 must go to open tender process. And we are trying to give more discretion for that funding and amounts under those thresholds so that we can try to meet our social procurement framework that we're trying to adopt and influence in Geelong. I thank the state government for actually telling all councils around Victoria that they must actually review their procurement policies, because what we have done in Geelong is actually embraced it immensely. And I actually hope that this document becomes an industry standard for all local government authorities around Victoria. We have a real chance with this document to significantly influence a better outcome for our community with the $250 million spend that we have in our annual procurement in the City of Greater Geelong. And I am already getting confidence that this document that we're releasing tonight is industry best practice and will lead other local governments to actually follow what we're doing. And I encourage the community to have a look at this document and recognise the significant change and also the influence that this council group is determining to make sure that every cent that we spend brings the utmost opportunity to better the lives of our community in the Geelong region. So please have a look at it, read it, and make sure that you do comment on it. And my only final comment is to thank the officers led by Travis Kirkwood. They accepted the challenge from this council group. They've brought back this document, and I'm very pleased what we're presenting to the community tonight on our procurement and $250 million that we're spending.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aitken. Now, on his good words, the draft procurement policy has undergone significant changes. This is to ensure compliance with the new Act and to ensure that the procurement policies undertaken by the City are actively monitored and reported on. This policy includes new thresholds for quotations and tendering, approvals of process decisions such as exemptions, a strong focus on compliance and reporting, as well as a renewed focus on collaborative procurement. The draft procurement policy will be supported by a number of additional internal documents, including the creation of the Social Procurement Framework, one of the first of its kind. This framework is a key document in supporting the implementation of the procurement policy. The document is due to be completed by July of 2022. In the interim, social procurement initiatives will be considered and included in all procurement activities as deemed suitable. But a strong focus on here is how the councillors are using this to better use council's money, the ratepayers' money. There's a strong focus, a shift towards quality, long-standing quality investments, which will stand the test of time. We don't want to be renewing items infrastructure, which have won for the lowest price. We actually want quality for our communities, things that will last, and items of infrastructure, which our community can be proud of. And for that, I second it, and I'm opening the floor to any councillors who wish to speak. I also will make note, immediately that Councillor Contell left this meeting when we went into this item due to his conflict of interest, which he raised at the start. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Trent. Look, I just want to concur with the comments made by yourself and Councillor Aiken, I guess, impressing the importance of this particular document and I guess the opportunity for community comment and I guess from industry and those who do engage with the council in this space. This will be a backbone policy of council because this is what we build on. And I really want to pay credit at this early stage to Travis Kerwood, who has led a lot of this discussion in this particular policy, and the social procurement framework body of work that he has brought to this document is innovative, it is very forward-thinking, and it will stand us in really good stead into the future. And as has been mentioned, we're after quality. We spend an enormous amount of money, and we spend an enormous on build, and then we spend an enormous amount of money on renewal and upgrade and upkeep. And we need to, be more mindful of that and make sure that the product we build in the first place or construct in the first place will stand the test of time, as has been said. So I just want to endorse the comments said thus far and not overstate how important this particular piece of work is going to be. And we need the community feedback. Now is the time to give us that and understand where we're coming from, and particularly, as I said, from the social procurement framework angle as well. Very critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Grisbeck.
And just to follow on from Councillor Harwood's comments, I think what we've been really careful to do is to make sure that all of the things that we've promised in terms of, for example, the Reconciliation Action Plan, the actions out of that plan around our procurement policies are in this draft policy. We talk about our youth policies, our ageing well policies. I think we've gone through all of our documentation where we have said these are the things that we will change going forward for procurement. We've tried to incorporate everything. So if we've missed something, or if there's something in there that you think we should include, this is the time for the community to have their say. Thank you, Councillor Sella.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Any other councillors wish to speak on this topic? Now throw back to Councillor Mansfield, please. Thank you,
Acting Mayor Sullivan, and really just to echo some of the comments made around the work that's gone into identifying, how council can make a bigger difference to our community through the way we contract and tender beyond just the narrow sort of lens of value for money and where cost is considered the most important outcome. We're focusing on quality, but what value means has been given a broader interpretation, and value is something that can be brought about through the impact that our tenders can have on a whole range of different social outcomes, as has been highlighted. As Councillor Grisbeck mentioned, our Reconciliation Action Plan, in the development of that, procurement was actually a really big topic because it's a key way, through our procurement, we can do a lot to support First Nations industry within our region with the right procurement settings if we've opened our minds to it. So that's where our social procurement framework can really deliver an impact beyond just the dollars and cents that are on the page. And I'm looking forward to seeing the further development of that. The other thing I'd highlight is that with any procurement policy, it's essential that we have safeguards in place to ensure appropriate conduct and governance. And throughout the development of this process, we've received assurances, and I'm very confident in the internal controls that exist within the organisation. So that's the mechanisms within the organisation to ensure that appropriate processes will be followed, that there are the appropriate checks and balances, that council is brought in at the appropriate times to provide oversight where we need to, and that there are other internal oversight mechanisms to ensure that integrity is upheld within the procurement processes, which is absolutely essential for the broader integrity of the City of Greater Geelong and local government more generally. It's a critical aspect. So I thank the officers for the work that they've done on that, and for also providing us with the insights around how all of that operates. And like other councils, like to encourage the community to have a look at this and let us know what you think. Very keen to hear your thoughts.
Well said, Councillor Mansfield. Any other councillors wish to make comment? If not, I'll throw it back to close. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Sullivan. Yeah, look, some important points have been made, and also wish to add that we are going to be investing significantly in our management systems and processes, and part of that, there's going to be enhanced transparency and reporting of our tendering processes. So the community will have significant access to understand where we are spending their money, which we haven't been able to do in the past. And we actually will be producing annual reports to actually show, are we meeting our targets that we've actually challenged the officers in terms of social procurement opportunities with our tendering and our quotation. And we want to put that out to the community as well too. So we aren't just making a policy position tonight and saying, let's just put it on the shelf and leave it. We actually are going to continuously monitor and see what success and influence our new procurement policy can do, and importantly, communicate that to our community to ensure that we do meet the highest levels of transparency and accountability with this significant amount of money that council does spend in our community annually.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. And with that, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Now, next on our agenda is item 5, the Ocean Grove Principal Pedestrian Network, proposed footpath construction, special charge scheme 354 declaration. Now, Amelia, I'm going to ask this item to be deferred. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Grisbeck, thank you very much. Whilst the council group acknowledges the need and want of safe alternative transport walking paths around our community, the funding model for this SRC has caused considerable tensions within the community and this council group, which is why I'm calling this deferral. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 6, Amendment C391 GGEE, Ash Road, Leopold, consideration of submissions. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mason, seconded. Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. This is to consider the submissions to Planning Scheme Amendment C391 GGEE and Planning Permit 39/2019, and recommend all the submissions be referred to an independent planning panel. Mr. Acting Mayor, the amendment proposes to rezone 5 farming zone properties on the eastern side of Ash Road, Leopold, to facilitate the subdivision and residential development. It's supported by a design and development overlay to manage subdivision design, connectivity, open space provision, and orderly planning. And concurrently, there's a planning permit application which seeks approval for a multi-lot stage subdivision, 87 to 101 and 103 to 127 Ash Road, Leopold. The exhibition commenced on the 27th of May and closed on the 28th of June this year. Notice was sent to over 260 landowners and occupiers, and usual good governance processes were undertaken. From that, a total of 29 submissions were received, with 13 opposing, 9 supporting and 7 making comments about the amendment. Key issues in these submissions can be simply summarised as the amendment will be detrimental to the semi-rural area of Leopold, the traffic impact, lack of infrastructure, environmental impact and integration with the Mollers Lane growth area. Mr Acting Mayor, there's a strong support for the amendment in the Leopold structure plan in planning policy framework with the Greater Geelong planning and for rezoning to the general residential zone. It has sound strategic basis in the settlement strategy and is also consistent with the need outlined in the G21 Geelong Regional Growth Plan and the localised planning statement to manage expansion of the region's urban areas and maintain non-urban breaks between settlements. The combination of these policies protects the valued rural and coastal areas of the peninsula from the pressure of urban expansion consistent with the objectives of the localised planning statement. So the site represents a logical rezoning as it will complete the urban area of the southeastern edge of Leopold and the general residential zone 1. The amendment is supported by technical assessments to address stormwater, quality and quantity management, native fauna and vegetation, and public open space. The information has informed the outline development with the draft design and development overlay and the draft planning permit. Mr Acting Mayor, despite this strong case for accepting the amendment, it's nevertheless recommended that all submissions be referred to an independent panel appointed by the Minister for Planning.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. Councillor.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Councillor Mason has done that superbly, so there's not much more to add. The only thing I wanted to add was that all of the submissions and the replies to the submissions will be sent through to the panel for their information as well. Thank you.
Well noted. Do any other councillors wish to speak on this topic? I'll just wrap up then myself then by saying that I do support this as well. An independent panel is an extraordinarily important part of this process. All the submissions which Council have received, Council laws have received and viewed, but we do want to make sure that all due proper processes are followed, and an independent panel assigned by the Minister is an important part of that. It will then come back to Council again to consider. And with that, I'll throw back to Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Nothing further to add.
Fantastic. And with that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 7 this evening. The proposed lease to the Royal Geelong Yacht Club, Inc., Geelong Waterfront and Marina. Do I have a mover? Councillor Contel. Seconder? Councillor Murray. Thank you. Councillor Contel.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. Look, the purpose of this report tonight is to seek council approval to enter into a community engagement process with the intention to enter into a new lease with the Royal Geelong Yacht Club, which will replace obviously the existing leases. The new lease will now include the newly built wave attenuator and also the marina over Crown Land as part of the Geelong Waterfront Safe Harbour Precinct master plan, as we're aware that those works were going on. So the existing land lease expires on the 30th of June 2036, and the existing marina lease expires in December 2041. However, the city as the Committee of Management were directed by DELP to replace the existing lease once stage 1 of the Waterfront Safe Harbour project was complete, which is now. So what's being asked tonight is, one, that we approve the community engagement in order to get feedback from the community with our intention to enter into a new lease with the Yacht Club for a maximum term of 21 years. Obviously, with that, to invite submissions to the proposed lease, and then, if necessary, depending on whether we receive submissions or not, convene a submissions review panel to hear those submissions and to report to council on any submissions related to proposed leases or the proposed lease. And then note further that the report will be presented back to council to consider any outcomes of that community engagement process and the submissions review panel. So, in essence, that's what we're asking for this evening.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Contell. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Look, there's not a great deal more I can add to that. Obviously, the installation of the wave attenuator, the Wongam Walk, has prompted sort of the increased area for the lease, and that's why I guess we're here tonight to put it out, inviting submissions. The new lease is for 21 years. We've all seen the success of that Wongam Walk. If you haven't been on it, it's really a great experience. And so it's only the start of work we will see down around the yacht club. Hopefully, in the very short time, things will ramp up there. But this is not about that tonight. It's about the new leases replacing the existing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Aiken.
Yeah, I think it is appropriate to disclose as well too that as the yacht club continues its transformation and its build, we will have additional leases come back to us. The proposed lease that's coming before us tonight is primarily for its existing space that it has, and as the designs and the new aspects of the yacht club are developed, council will have a responsibility to enter into new leases for those new areas as well too, Councillor Sullivan.
Well noted, Councillor Aiken. Any other councillors wish to speak? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Contell to close.
Nothing further, Acting Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Contell. With that, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 8 on the agenda this evening. The proposed lease to Geelong Regional Library Corporation for Level 4 office space at Geelong Library Heritage Centre. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mansfield. Seconder, Councillor Mason. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. With this item, it's a proposed lease to the Geelong Regional Library Corporation for Level 4 office space at the Geelong Library and Heritage Centre. By way of background, the Geelong Regional Library Corporation has actually leased this same space since the 8th of August in 2017. So they are seeking to renew that lease for another 5 years. In order to do so, because of the value of the proposed lease under the Local Government Act, this requires that we undertake community engagement regarding the proposal. And so this motion is really to commence that community engagement process. Anyone who would like to make a submission is welcome to around that lease. And if they'd like to, can also be heard at a submissions review panel by council. Otherwise, this is a fairly straightforward item.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I think Councillor Mansfield's covered it all, and certainly our wonderful library is a symbol of our UNESCO City of Design and also our clever and creative future. And as Councillor Mansfield said, it's a mandatory process we need to go through since the market value of the lease is over $100,000. But I would like to say that over 40% of our population are active members. I said that earlier in the night, actually. And that means that within the COG municipality, there's over 100,000 members, but within our region, we've got over 128,000. And the Geelong Regional Library Corporation offers a wide range of services, not only through our main branches in other municipalities such as Queenscliff, Surf Coast, Golden Plains, and more recently Colac Otway, but the 14 branches within COG itself and the 225 community partners. And there's high user satisfaction as indicated by the recurrent annual reports. And these reports also make great reading. And so the level 4 is the administration hub of this fantastic operation, and it's essential for the ongoing highly successful function. And so it's a no-brainer that we should continue with this lease, and I support the motion.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Mason. Do any other councillors wish to speak on this topic? Before I throw back to Councillor Mansfield to close, so leases like this may seem procedural and mundane, but like the item before it, these are important leases of important places within our city. We're very fortunate to have facilities like the Yacht Club, like our fantastic library in the Geelong Heritage Centre. And how we manage those ongoing is important for not only us, but for every other resident and future generations within our municipality. With that, I'll throw to Councillor Mansfield to close up.
Nothing further to add.
Thank you. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 9 on the agenda, the proposed lease for Geelong Resource Recovery Centre at 100 Jura Street, North Geelong. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mansfield. Seconder? Councillor Maloney. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. As with the previous items, this one is another proposed lease, this time for the Geelong Resource and Recovery Centre. GDP Industries Limited has leased the Geelong Resource and Recovery Centre on Jura Street since the 2nd of August in 2016. As we discussed at our last council meeting, they've actually operated and managed the facility during this period. And we resolved at our last council meeting to once again award the tender to operate and manage the Resource and Recovery Centre to GDP Industries. They now require us to, or they're now asking to enter into a new lease at the site. That lease expired, their previous lease expired on the 30th of June. So once again, due to the value of the proposed lease under the Local Government Act, we are required to commence community engagement on this proposal. This motion will commence that engagement if passed, and as with the other items, anyone is welcome to make a submission, and they can request to be heard at a submissions review panel should they desire.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan, and thank you, Councillor Mansfield, as well for that introduction. Just quickly, this site is quite important for our circular economy. This is one of the key places where you will take your recycled goods, your e-waste, your batteries, and anything that you're doing with respect to spring cleaning. So it's important that we get this this lease under wraps. But if the report is supported, then all the interested parties and community members are encouraged to have a say. That's all from me. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other councillors wish to make comment? And with that, I'll throw back to Councillor Mansfield to close.
Nothing further to add.
Excellent. With that, I'll put to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item number 10 this evening. The proposed lease to E&E.Hub Pty Ltd for smart city infrastructure. Do I have a mover? Councillor Murray. And seconder, Councillor Howard. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is about the city entering into an 18-year lease with E&E Hub Proprietary Limited, which replaces the existing lease, and it's for the installation of smart nodes, and they're to go along the Geelong waterfront, at Johnston's Park, Cardinia Park, the Ballerine Rail Trail, South Barwon Recreation Reserve, and Austin Park at Lara. So there's a good spread across the city for the smart nodes. And of course, these are instrumental in providing free Wi-Fi locations with the availability of high-speed internet connection. and it minimises the digital divide and promotes digital inclusion. And it's worth noting that it's been out for community engagement with no submissions received. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yeah, look, Councillor Peters spoken quite well on the topic. I'll just give a couple of quick points in relation to obviously the broad coverage that is starting, and that will no doubt grow into the future. This is part of our clever and creative mantra of the city, our city of design, and we're looking to engage our community as best we can and give everyone the opportunity to be engaged with the information technology age. And it'll be also critically important for our tourism and hospitality industry. When people come to the region, they want to find out what's going on, where to go, how to do it, and how to engage. I think these points will be critical to that. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Matt Simsack, who's since left the organisation, but was critically involved in the start of this discussion about the smart nodes and what it means to our region overall. It will really help us grow substantially, keep us in contact. It'll bring valuable information back to our officers about what's occurring and how it's occurring. And it will provide a lot more data and information for us to make hopefully better decisions as councillors in the future. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any other councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Grisbeck.
Just quickly, Acting Mayor, this is one step closer to having that free Wi-Fi for the community, and particularly in Austin Park in Lara. I know it will be very well received from the youngsters that are out there in Austin Park and enjoying the outdoors at the moment. The possibility of Wi-Fi and free Wi-Fi in communities like ours out here in the north is one of the most important things for allowing that community to be brought along the journey along with the whole of the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Any other councillors? Councillor Maloney.
Thank you very much. And I agree with Councillor Grisbeck's sentiments about the digital divide being bridged, hopefully, with this, but also with the introduction of smart cities technology and IoT, any technology really. The collection of data is incredibly important to us here at the city for a number of reasons. And also it's important that you know as a constituency that your data is being used for certain purposes, as was mentioned, tourism, etc., economic development. So it's important that you know that what it's used for and how it's captured. And it's also important that you know with free Wi-Fi, there are inherent cybersecurity risks. So just make sure that you visit our website, make sure that you're aware of when you're logging onto Wi-Fi, make sure you're using some encryption or if not sending anything super personal. So just be aware of your online security with respect to connecting to those IoT devices. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Any further comments? And I'll throw back to Councillor Murray to close.
Nothing further, Deputy Mayor, other to endorse Councillor Harwood's words about Matt Simsack and his work in relation to this. Thank you.
Absolutely, noted. With that, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 11, proposed road deviation 185 to 235 Port Arlington Road Development, Pigton Street deviation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mason, a seconder, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor, Acting Mayor Sullivan. This is to advise Council of the outcomes of the Section 2223 process for the deviation of part of Pigton Street, Port Arlington, and to seek approval to continue with the deviation as required by the endorsed development plan for the site located at 185 to 235 Geelong Road, Port Arlington. And in accordance with the Local Government Acts 1989, it was necessary to invite submissions to this proposed road deviation. That was undertaken this year between the 25th of June and the 30th of July, and 4 submissions were received. One related to the design and not to the deviation. 2 submissions requested further information. and one submission expressed concern regarding the traffic turning right from Pigton Street towards Port Arlington Main Township and the rise in the road at that point. Acting Mayor, this matter has been addressed in the endorsed development plan, and there will no longer be a right turn from Pigton Street into Port Arlington Road. That will occur at Batman Street instead. None of the submitters requested to be heard or talked in regard to their submissions. So, Acting Mayor, this deviation does provide a safer outcome, and I've read the Traffic Group Traffic Engineering report, its extensive consideration and its final conclusion. And that conclusion was, as quoted, this states, there are no traffic engineering reasons why a permit should not be granted for the proposed subdivision for land bounded by the Geelong Port Arlington Road, Allens Road and the Batman Road in Port Arlington. Mayor, since Pigton Street is on Crown land and is to be deviated onto private land, ministerial consent is also required. I support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Councillor Mason has superbly given the overview of this matter, and I don't think I have anything further to add. Thank you.
No worries, thank you. Councillors, any comments? Before I refer back to Councillor Mason, as somebody who lives quite close to this, there's 4 submissions did concern me slightly, and I did go over the engineering report in detail. As all these roads in this area are unsealed, residents who rely on the current roads to access the highway, if they're shut off, going back the opposite way is quite difficult sometimes, especially in winter. On the hill, poor stormwater is coming off there. It's actually a very muddy area, a very steep area, just in general. But given on inspection on the report and the measures which will be put in place during the development of this area, of this Pigton Street, panorama Port Arlington development, I'm comfortable with going forwards with this matter. Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. And that's, I hear what you say, and the realigned section of Pigton Street is proposed to have a cross-section that's 16 metres in width, with its cross-section transitioning to its existing 20.12 metres width in the eastern portion of the site, which is, as you say, has its unsealed issues. But noting that the entire Pigton Street cross-section within the site is to be upgraded to an urban standard and sealed carriageway. So nothing further to add other than that, Acting Mayor.
Excellent. With that, we'll put to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Item 13 this evening. All right, sorry. Item 12, my mistake. The partial discontinuance, proposed partial road discontinuance and sale abutting 56 to 58 Wellington Road, Ocean Grove. I got that out. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mason, and I'm happy to second this one. Councillor Mason.
Me again, Acting Mayor. This is to advise the outcome of the community engagement in Section 223 of the Local Government Act 1989 process relating to the discontinuance of a partial road reserve abutting 56 to 58 Wellington Road, Ocean Grove, and also to seek approval to discontinue the road and sell the land currently within the road reserve, being approximately 85 square metres. Acting Mayor, this all began through the abutting property owner, a cafe business at 56 to 58 Wellington Road, requesting the opportunity to purchase this land, which is part of a road reserve and is now well offset from the current Wellington Road alignment. This road reserve is now redundant, is not on the municipal roads register, and is a logical action as the sale will enable the cafe owner to improve the amenity of the footpath in this area. Following the mandatory community consultation, there were 2 submissions, neither of which requested to be heard. One submitter supported the discontinuance, and the other, not objecting, requested that the funding received from the sale be redirected to the Ocean Grove Principal Pedestrian Network. We'll take note of that. So council has the authority to discontinue the road. The land will then vest in council and can be sold. So, Mr. Acting Mayor, the city will be reimbursed all costs of this discontinuance. The land will be sold at market value and is surplus to our needs. I support the recommendation, Acting Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. As you said, 85 square metres of land, 2 submissions in this, none of them in the negative. Happy to go ahead with this as laid out. Any other councillors wish to make comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Mason to close.
Nothing further to add, Acting Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. The actual number 13 now. Proposed road discontinuance and sale, Mina Place, North Geelong. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mansfield. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Contell. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. This item is proposing the discontinuance and sale of Mina Place in North Geelong. The background to this one was that City of Greater Geelong was approached by the owner of the land abutting Mina Place in North Geelong, requesting to purchase the land in order to expand their business. In order to consider the sale of the land as per the Local Government Act community engagement requirements, community engagement was undertaken regarding this proposal. There was a 1-month engagement period. This proposal was advertised in a number of different locations. No submissions were received during that 1-month engagement period. Hopefully that means that all of those who have an interest in this matter are comfortable with the outcome. We haven't heard of any, I certainly haven't heard of any objections to this. So this motion, if passed, will discontinue the road and approve the sale of the road reserve to the abutting owner.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. Yes, as per Councillor Mansfield's reporting of this item, there's nothing that I could see, and certainly hadn't been approached by any of the community or businesses in and around that area. This road that this road runs off, as Councillor Mansfield already suggested, is about 1,500 square metres, and it's really a bit of housekeeping from the way I see it. So I'm supportive of this progressing.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any other councillors wish to make comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Mansfield to close.
And nothing further.
Thank you. All right, we'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 14. Revocation of proposed road discontinuance and sale of laneway abutting 4 Cleveland Court, Corio. Do I have a mover? Councillor Aiken, seconder, Councillor Griesbeck. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. This is actually a procedural motion. The abutting land property owner no longer wishes to now purchase the land. So this is to remove the original road discontinuance and sale process that Council actually adopted in April of 2021.
Thank you very much. Councillor Griesbeck.
I've got nothing further to add. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Any councillors to comment? Back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Nothing further.
All right, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 15. Ashbury Stage 20, revocation of flood-prone area designation of new lots. Do I have a mover? Councillor Maloney, seconder. Councillor Nelson. Councillor Maloney.
Sullivan, and this item is recommending a report that revokes the flood-prone area designation on a new estate, Ashbury Estate, which seems to be coming up in the world. We've done a lot of internal drainage work, road construction. You've probably seen the likes of it over the last few months or so, and these works have been resulting in the areas being protected from flooding events, major storm events, once in 100-year floods. So these are nothing new to council, but these are really important for people in these areas to make sure that they can maintain adequate insurance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Nelson. You're on mute, Councillor Nelson.
Yes, I'm over 50, but not 55 yet. Nothing further, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Any other councillors to comment? If not, I'll put back to Councillor Maloney to close.
Thank you. Pretty standard flood, designated flood mapping. Nothing really else to say. Thank you, Acting Mayor.
Excellent. We'll put to the vote then. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 16. Armstrong Stage 46D, revocation of flood-prone area, designation of new lots. Do I have a mover? Councillor Nelson, seconder. Councillor Harwood. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Yeah, this is just like the previous one. It's just to remove the revocation there from that flood-prone area that officers have made so that it doesn't flood in that one in 100-year flood just off Boundary Road. And what's another road there? Airport Road. That's where the runway used to be for those playing at home. Off in Mount Dunedin Estate there. I'll leave it to the councillors to have their say. Thanks, Councillor Sullivan.
Councillor Nelson, Councillor Harwood.
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Any other comments from councillors? Back to Councillor Nelson to close.
Nothing further, Councillor Sullivan.
No, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 17. Armstrong Stage 47B, revocation of flood-prone area designation of new lots. Do I have a mover? Councillor Harwood, seconder. Councillor Maloney. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. As previously mentioned, just a procedural motion we're going through to allow from residents there to gain insurance on their properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maloney.
It seems to be a flood of flood revocations here. They're just similar to the second or previous. This is a revocation of from fronting 20 Botanical Drive in Mount Dunedin. Nice part of the world. Nothing further. Thanks.
Excellent. Any other councillors to comment? Councillor Harwood to close.
Thank you. We don't want to water down their importance. Nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll put to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 18. Armstrong Stage 66, revocation of flood-prone area, designation of new lots. Do I have a mover? Councillor Maloney, seconder. Councillor Nelson. Councillor Maloney.
I've run out of puns for this, sorry. Just revocation of the flood-prone area designation on these new lots. This is different. This is Boundary Road in Mount Dunedin, so making sure that we can insure their properties. Nothing further.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Nelson.
Nothing further, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Any other councillors to comment? With that, Councillor Maloney to close.
Nothing further, thank you.
Put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 19. Finesford, Stage 2A, revocation of flood-prone area designation of new lots. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mansfield, seconder. Councillor Murray. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. This is the same type of item as the previous ones, except for this time it's applying to Gen Finesford, Stage 2A. This revocation can occur because internal works that mitigate flooding risk, including 100-year ARI events, have been completed.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. I'm actually quite excited to speak about this. This doesn't normally happen in our ward, but and you learn as you go. But it allows owners to build on their land without a special permit from council and without raising the floor level of their home, and also reduces the cost of property insurance. So, very exciting.
Excellent, thank you. Any other councillors to comment? Councillor Mansfield. Oh, sorry, Councillor Nelson, you wish to comment?
I do, Councillor Sullivan. It's just from what Councillor Murray said. It's such a beautiful little area down there. I was down there on the weekend walking the dogs, so it will make those people down there's houses even better and their lives even better with reduced insurance costs. That's about it. Nice area.
Well noted. Thank you. With no further comments, Councillor Mansfield to close.
Nothing further.
Excellent. We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Now, item number 20, planning authorisation. Council to staff. Do I have a mover? Councillor Grisbeck. Seconder, Councillor Howard. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. This is pretty standard for our Planning and Environment Act, where we delegate authority through to an officer. This particular officer is Julian Pollard, and we're quite rightly allocating the authorisation through to them to exercise the statutory powers under this Act. And the Planning and Environment Act regulates the enforcement and is relying on these authorised officers to act on our behalf. Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harwood.
Nothing further, thank you.
Excellent. Any other councillors to comment? Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Thank you. Just welcome to the team. Thank you.
Excellent. With that, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item number 21, delegation review. Council to delegated committees. Do I have a mover? Councillor Aiken. Seconder, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Sullivan. Look, this is actually another procedural motion under the Local Government Act. We've actually got 12 months after our election to actually review our delegated responsibilities to committees. We've actually got 3 committees that have that responsibility. One is our planning committee. Another is our Geelong Major Events Committee. And the final one is our CEO Employment Matters Committee. The delegations have been reviewed, and tonight's recommendation is that there should be no changes to our existing delegations to those 3 committees. The recommendation tonight is that we adopt that delegations that have been in place previously for each of those 3 committees. Councillor Sullivan.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Nelson.
Yeah, nothing for Councillor Sullivan.
Any other councillors wish to make comment? With that, I'll throw back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Nothing further. Thank you.
We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. That brings us to an end of section B. We're now moving to section C, notices of motion. First and only notice of motion we have is for Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck, for presenting this notice of motion as tonight. Can I have a seconder to consider this motion, notice of motion? Councillor Aiken to second. Thank you. Councillor Grisbeck, over to you.
Thank you very much. My notice of motion tonight is requesting the CEO to undertake a review of the Council's fair play strategy and assess the impact of sports lighting being recognised as a standard item under the policy. And I'm hoping that report will be presented back to Council March next year. The report that I'm asking for hopefully will consider the benefits and impacts, including the financial considerations on sporting clubs arising for such a change in this policy, the benefits and impacts and financial considerations on council that would be as a result if we were to change the policy, and the implications and changes on the club's roles and responsibilities towards the future maintenance and upgrading of sports lighting across the municipality. Just as a bit of background, we know that sports lighting is essential in winter sports. Obviously, the daylight savings allows summer sports to continue to train right up until about 9 o'clock at night generally. But most of winter sports across the municipality do require lighting as a standard item for all the sports that I can think of that are outdoors. In 2017, we adopted a fair play strategy, and this was an arrangement about how council would support sporting clubs across Geelong, and this has been in place for 4 years. Must have been one of the first ones that I was involved in when we first got elected in 2017. One of the areas of the strategy that this notice seeks to reconsider in regards to sports lighting is that it's deemed as a standard item under the fair play strategy, which means that council may have direct responsibility for providing maintenance. That's constantly what I hear from sporting clubs around the municipality, especially given that we have given a lot of grant money to clubs and to lighting across the municipality. You will see a lot of the new LED lights go up around the municipality in different areas. This is, usually it's around a $350,000 installation of lighting to allow that lighting to light up the pitch or the ground in which the sports will be undertaken. That is a fair chunk of money in terms of the investment which council is making. As the current policy stands, is that the club that is having the lights installed would also then be responsible for maintaining those lights. And for many clubs across the community, the maintenance of such lights becomes at a cost which is detrimental to local clubs. The cost for replacement of a globe, for example, or not globes in LED sense, but for any maintenance on the lights can be upwards of $5,000 by the time they hire the right equipment, the booms and those sorts of things, and get the right people in terms of trades out there to look at those lights. I'm wanting the city to look at how it could maintain these lights across the municipality going forward. I think it's a cost prohibitive for clubs to go forward. Obviously, clubs take the cost of the power that it takes to light those pitches, and I think the responsibility should continue to lie with the clubs for the usage of those. Benchmarking recently undertaken by the city provided an insight to say that our current strategy is not the same as major metro councils across the region and also some rural councils. So I think that where other municipalities treat sports lighting as standards, our current council policy is that it's not. So as I've explained earlier, I think that we need to look at asking the CEO to do a report to come back to council about what that might mean in terms of a policy position and also what it might mean in terms of financial position for council. So supporting this notice of motion would indicate an intention for council to consider its policy position, and that's why I've asked the CEO to assist here. I'll finish when we close. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Sullivan. And look, congratulations to Councillor Grisbeck for bringing this before the council group. This is actually a really good example of grassroots representation, and it's exactly what councillors are elected for. It is our role to improve council's relationship in our community, and Councillor Grisbeck is actually using her local connections, her local knowledge and her local understanding to actually bring this issue before us. And in fact, it's actually a great challenge that we've got in the city of Greater Geelong. We do want to maximise our usage of our sporting facilities. And with the massive explosion that's actually been undertaken with female participation, it actually means it's standard now to have lights. The only way we can maximise the usage of our community sports assets is actually to have lighting. So it is very appropriate that we ask the CEO to have a look at our fair play policy, which doesn't include lighting as a standard piece of infrastructure, and it doesn't have a fair play about how the ongoing operational costs of those lighting is actually going to be met. So, look, I commend Councillor Gresbeck for bringing this before us and thank her for drawing our attention to it. And I hope that the team and the CEO can come back with a very worthwhile report that responds to the significant challenges that are being faced by our sporting community. And ultimately, wearing my finance hat as the Chair of Finance, I think it's really good that we're trying to maximise the usage of our significant investments that we are putting into our sporting. And this actually is about getting a greater return on our investment by putting lights in and by ensuring that those lights are fully operational for as long as they can be, and making sure that, in particular, female participation isn't restricted because of infrastructure constraints that we know we have across the city.
Well said, Councillor Aiken. Any other councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I too want to congratulate Councillor Grisbeck on this nom. I think it's a great initiative. A lot of thought, I think, has gone into this, and really, it wasn't too many years ago that lighting wasn't standard across a lot of sporting grounds. Across the regional Victoria and indeed Geelong. And we've come a long way, certainly in the last few years, in relation to lighting, and have got some way to go before we can really meet the expectations of what people expect of their sporting grounds to be able to be lit. But the cost to clubs and the complications with fixing some of those lights, I think some sporting grounds, they might have a dark back pocket or a dark forward pocket because clubs can't get a cherry picker or afford to get up and actually replace one of those bulbs, or they might be a bit skew with from the weather over a few years. So the actual effect of the lighting is not as great as it should be. So even just to fix the correction of the lighting is cost prohibitive. So I'll be very interested to see what the CEO comes back with this, but very supportive, and congratulations again.
Well said, Councillor Murray. Other councillors wish to make comment? I too, naturally will congratulate Councillor. Councillor Nelson, you wish to speak?
I think I need some lighting, Councillor Sullivan. It's a bit dark and yellow over here.
Well noted. Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Now, this is a pressure point for the community sporting clubs. Naturally, it's not only the maintenance cost in terms of bulbs spoiling and whatnot. For instance, down in Leopold, we occasionally get very intelligent flocks of birds, parrots, corellas, who will rip out wiring just for the sake of it, and these costs are then left to clubs to bear under the current strategy. Sports are very important to all of regional Victoria, and this is a great time to have a review. And I also support Councillor Grisbeck in the motion. Do you have the councillors to make comment before I throw back? Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. I look forward to this report if it's supported tonight. It'll give us a clear indication about what it will take to make sure that we can have those back pockets that are not black, according to Councillor Murray here, and I know exactly what he's saying. And it is cost prohibitive for some clubs to change their lights or to upgrade the lights. We will continue to offer infrastructure grants to upgrade lighting facilities. This is not about what we will do to light up the rest of the municipality, but this is about how we could actually maintain the lights and give them a longer life. For example, one of the things that I've been thinking about is that when the city procures these particular lighting installations, we could request further warranty periods during the procurement process. I think that's something that I would like the officers to consider. Thank you, everybody, and thank you to the officers for their assistance so far, and I look forward to receiving the report in due course.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. With that, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Congratulations. With that, we'll move to section D, record of informal meetings of councillors. Can I please have a mover and a seconder for the record of informal meetings of councillors? Moved by Councillor Mansfield, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Murray, much appreciated. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Section E, planning delegations. Can we please have a mover for this? Councillor Harwood, seconded. Councillor Grisbeck, much appreciated. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Section F, confidentiality. So we have item 7.1, Audit and Risk Committee Summary Report. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to place this matter in the confidential section? Moved by Councillor Mason, second by Councillor Grisbeck. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Now with that, can I please have a, now we have to close the meeting to the public to consider this item. Now, can I please have a mover and a seconder to close this meeting to the public so we can consider the confidential item? Moved by Councillor Harwood, seconded by Councillor Mason. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Well, we are now to consider the remaining agenda item in our confidential section of the meeting. I would like to thank our virtual gallery members for their participation tonight. Everyone involved, good evening.